Everybody, welcome to another edition of The Hot Seat. I am your host, Leo Brady, film critic with AMovieGuy.com, and I am really excited today to be with a director who has an excellent and a really cool documentary coming out. He is somebody who is connected to a lot of people in Hollywood, a lot of people who have made pretty amazing movies and been a part of the Hollywood studio system for quite an awesome long time. He's the director of this film. This is Robert Schwartzman. Robert, thank you for being with me here today.
Thank you, Leo. I appreciate it. Thanks
This
for
is
having
so,
me.
yeah, this is so awesome. So the first question that we ask on the hot seat for every person we talk to, it's always the same, but you are also both a director and an actor as well. But for you, what movie comes to mind that made you say, I want to act and or I want to direct? What's that movie, that seminal moment film that made you say, yeah, I want to do that?
Well, it's funny because it's like I've acted in films, and those films have gotten out into the world in a really great way,
Yeah.
or they've hit people in a really meaningful way. And I really do enjoy just being a part of the creative process at any level. I just find it all to be exciting.
Yeah.
It's like whenever it's like I never stop and think of myself as an actor because I don't do it as a full profession, but I definitely. My mom is an actress, and she's very, went to Yale Drama School. She's very intense when it comes to act in all the right ways. She's intense.
Yeah.
I've just learned so much from being around her. But she showed me like incredible movies growing up. So it's, obviously you have these really you have actors that bring such an emotional depth to roles. Someone like Marlon Brando is an incredible actor. You have actors that showed that they can sing and dance and have such charisma, like Gene Kelly. Singing in the Rain was a big film we watched a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's just something, the more you watch movies and get a sense of music, of film history, the more you can put things in perspective and see the sort of evolution of film.
Yeah.
But same with music. I mean, a lot of the filmmakers in my family were all the sort of descendants of like musicians, so Italian immigrants,
Right.
musicians who were all classically trained musicians who were
Yeah.
really incredible at what they did as musicians. So I think music is a part of my life. It's been a part of my family's, like everyone's, filmmaking inspiration. A lot of their film comes from music. Music is a big part of
Yeah.
all of our films.
Yeah.
So, but I fell in love with like early pop music, 60s pop music, British invasion music.
Yeah.
And then I started, as you kind of dig deeper into music, you start to kind of understand like who was doing what when, and that puts things in perspective. You get better context.
Yeah.
And it's through music documentaries that actually help take you on that journey.
Yeah.
So I love any doc. A doc is just fun to watch because you gain something new. Hopefully, you've learned something.
You're right.
It's an educational experience to watch a documentary. And then
Yeah.
when you watch it about a band, any band, not just Hung Up on a Dream, this film, but like you walk away learning something new about a process, where someone came from, the ups and downs they faced. And then that affects you in your own existence and how you look at your life and these kinds of themes that we visit in documentaries. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I was very, and I started a band in high school. So I had a band called Rooney.
Yep.
Rooney spent a lot of time touring, making albums. So I kind of lived this life as a band guy. I was on tour last year, funny enough, and I toured with the Zombies while we were shooting the movie.
Oh my God.
So there
Awesome.
was like cool, everything roads all finding their way together, but a really special experience getting to make a film about one of my favorite bands, the Zombies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You sort of in a little bit of a way answered my next question, but it is kind of, but I want to kind of hear you go into a little bit more detail about it because like growing up, I mean, like your environment is art. Like, I mean, your mom, your uncle, your your cousins, your brother, like you are totally surrounded by like you said, cinema and music. What would you describe that sort of family dynamic? I mean, like, is there like competitive nature sort of at hand, or is it just like it's just infectious? It's just all there. your brother's talking about what movie he's looking at, and your mom's talking about movies that she was on. That has to be an amazing dynamic growing up, but also maybe one that, because at least to give you an example, like for me, my mom was a teacher growing up, grew up teaching, and I always said to myself, the last thing I want to do is be a teacher, but in a way, I write about movies, and I am kind of in sort of a avenue of being educational, or you know what I mean, knowing about the arts. Did that just come natural for you, or was it just a family dynamic right from the jump?
I think, I mean, definitely growing up, being able to visit a movie set, listen to a conversation about a movie getting made, those kinds of things like make an impression. Obviously, when you're young, you're kind of just a sponge for like the world around you.
Yeah,
It probably goes both ways. Like maybe people grow up around it and they don't want to be a part of a certain industry, whatever their parents are working in,
right.
or people actually see they connect to it more because they've been around it.
Yeah.
Maybe it goes both ways. I think for me, I wanted to make. I always loved the idea of like being able to direct a movie was always really appealing to me. That
Yeah.
was my early like a childhood like dream of, well, maybe I could make movies,
Yeah.
tell stories on the screen. And I eventually got pulled into this like to being a full-time like guy in a rock and roll band, and that was unexpected for me. That was like not really familiar to me growing up.
Right.
But it's if I were to kind of like break it all down, it's all connected in that you're creating something from nothing. Like you're taking an idea in your mind or something that you get excited about and you're chasing this like dream, right?
Yeah.
And or the dream of an idea, not like the dream of like, oh, I want to hit it big or something. I mean
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, like I'd love to see a movie about blah blah blah. Okay, cool. Well, let's go make that movie. Like that kind of thing, right? Or
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a song like this, and then you kind of feel inspired to go write something like that.
Yeah. Totally.
So yeah, I mean that so but growing up in that environment was just, I think it felt okay to create and it felt okay to want to be in that world.
Yeah.
Some families, maybe that's a very foreign type of occupation where someone might look down on it. It's
Right.
talked about in the Zombies movie. Paul Atkinson, who passed away, became a very big, successful like A&R executive,
Right.
like a label executive who signed
Yeah.
a lot of amazing bands.
Yeah.
He started off as like the guitar player in the Zombies, and his he came from more of like a business background family. So
Yeah.
the having like a rock and roll band was just like they probably didn't connect to what this was he was doing.
Yeah.
Pulled him more of like that's when you have this identity thing of, well, what am I going to do with my time?
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to grow up in a home that nurtured the arts and creativity as an output, as a profession,
Yeah.
but also education was a big part of our like we my you know I know my mom wanted us all to go to college and then we all left or like didn't go. So
Yeah.
we just got pulled into like chasing creating stuff and just going and starting young.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, I mean it's not some people ask the question of like, what's it like at Thanksgiving at the house or something? Like, is everyone talking about movies?
Right.
Like, kind of like, yes, ish. But I mean, in the way that you talk about how's work going
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you talk about this thing you're working on, it's
Right.
not like everyone's sitting there with a PowerPoint presentation about like what we're up to. You know what I
Right.
mean? But, and
Right.
there's always going to be competition in a healthy way, even in any, like with just, even if we weren't all connected, it would just be like things you're seeing in the world that might inspire you
Yeah.
to push you,
Yep.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think like because I recently interviewed Veronica Cartwright too, and her sister was in The Sound of Music, and she was in Alien and The Birds and things movies like that. And it was interesting talking to her because it's like they're not like it's going back to the Thanksgiving analogy. It's not like you guys are like, hey, let's pull out Wild at Heart and watch cousin Nick working on his movie. It's not like family photos in that regard. It's more like you kind of just do it and then you talk about the creative process, or you maybe talk about other movies that you're seeing. You're not going to be talking about your own work necessarily all the time. You'd rather talk about somebody else or something else that you're picking up on. Um, so that totally makes sense to me. I want to get into, but I do want to get into this movie. Because I know that this is a sort of important movie. I feel like this is a movie that sort of you had to feel like you were giving the zombies their due that they didn't get enough of, right? I mean, is that sort of where the inspiration came for you to like be like, I want to make a documentary about the zombies, a band that like kind of got overshadowed maybe during like time of the Beatles or Dylan and things of that nature. And this is a band that really just made phenomenal music, just beautiful music too.
Definitely. When you, I mean, I can speak for myself. Like, I, yeah, I wanted to really highlight for me a band that I love so much.
Yeah.
And if it mean, sometimes if something means so much to one person, and yeah, I mean, I'm not the only Zombies fan out there, but
Right.
clearly, like, it means a lot to a lot of people. The real question is like, what's there? Like, is there a story to be told
Yeah.
the way that we would need to tell it within the sort of documentary format?
Yeah.
That's the sort of like filmmaking, calling on your like filmmaking perspective would be, how do I shape the story?
Yeah.
You would think, okay, they've been around from this day, this time period. When we started the doc, they were on tour, so they were still playing as a band.
Yeah.
So you've got to think, okay, there's got to be a lot in here to talk about. But, I think it's my job to like pull out to find the hooks and the story pieces and the emotional pieces to make it worthwhile to give us your time to watch this movie.
Yeah.
Because you can't, I mean, I don't take for granted when someone sits down to actually like watch a movie. Like I think it's a pretty important moment that someone's giving you their time like that.
Right. Right.
So I'm pretty critical of like, is this like, did we do a good job? Like, is this worth watching? What am I, why are we watching? It was like, you're asking all these questions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So hopefully, like, I have to answer those questions while we're making it and try to find enough pieces to thread the needle. But they have this, Odyssey and Oracle was considered one of the best albums ever made.
Yeah.
It came out like really, like they broke up really like before the album connected with a large audience, which is
Right.
totally bizarre that, and it makes sense. We don't live in the same time. Like that was a time when bands didn't really think they'd have like a career in music. They were just kind of maybe jumping on a wave and riding that wave as quickly as they could, but they didn't really know where it was going to take them. So
Right.
we look at back now and go, "Oh my God, like why didn't they stay together? This makes no sense." At that time, they didn't, as they say in the doc, they didn't even know if this form of music, rock and roll, was going to even be around.
Yeah.
So, and they didn't even really know themselves musically. They were still finding their voice as, right, as a musician, as a, not just literally, but just musically. Like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
So I think it's just really cool that they didn't get to like really grab onto that dream at the time because of these reasons, but they got to find it again later in their life. And that's the story that's so meaningful.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson of just like, wow, like don't give up kind of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think like also too, while I was watching it, I was like, this is like the exact opposite of what I think, again, not to stereotype or say that what people would think a documentary about a rock band would be about, but like this feels like the exact opposite of say, like if you were to watch a documentary about Motley Crue or Oasis or bands, The Doors is a really good example too. Bands that had a lot of chaos at times, or there's a lot of infighting. The zombies felt like, I mean, like watching the documentary, they got along from the start, they got along midway through, they get along today, and like the only things that were like hindering them from the success that they were like deserving and worthy of was things like that, like financial, issues with their managers and things that bands don't understand, like was a legitimate issue a lot of times. And I think like that's kind of what I gravitated to, that this band, there seems to be a genuine love amongst the group, that they loved making the music, they loved doing what they were doing. And if if the success had been maybe a little bit more of a steep, incline up, they would have been together forever and they would have been making way more music than what they made. It just happened to be that they were in a time period that didn't allow
Yeah.
that.
Right. I mean, there aren't a lot of bands from the that era who did stay together long. Most of them didn't. Most of the bands didn't stay together. Even the
Yeah.
ones that were successful broke up
Yeah.
and did other things. So it's not like unusual that they didn't stay together in that time period. I think yeah, like but at the heart of the movie, if I were let's just say I stood up in front of the audience and got to introduce this movie.
Yeah.
I would say I would really touch on the theme of the film for me, and it's friendship.
Yeah.
A lot of it's true, a lot of rock docs. It's about like a destructive kind of behavior that finally they got clean or whatever happened later.
Right.
Right? That's fine. That's their story. This band had a different struggle. They were very, you could see they're really good people
Yeah.
and their heart's in the right place. And they were able to maintain that like friendship, the sort of innocence and the sort of that pure quality in their like way of dealing with each other. That's how it seems in the film.
Yeah.
And there's something amazing about that. I think seeing those guys come together and like maintain that can be so realistic. Like they speak of it, it's such a grounded way.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. Like it's
Yeah.
you don't have to be like detached from life, living in a bubble, right? Like you can still be someone who you can still speak openly and honestly and connect to things,
Yeah.
right? And still have made such a strong impression and left such a big mark on the world.
Right.
So I love that about it. A lot of people find that it's sort of the anti-rock star kind of story in a way, like,
Yeah.
you
But
know what I mean?
I love it too. I mean, I think it's we don't get enough of it, honestly. And I hope, and I'm assuming like for you and a lot of people who watch this documentary, they're just probably listening to the zombies music like crazy now. I know I have. I've been listening,
Right.
honestly.
Since you watched it.
Yeah, since I watched it, I've been listening to them
Right.
on Spotify like all week, and it's just I can't get enough of it because there are so many more deeper cuts than what
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean that you knew. They're telling me to wrap up here soon, but I want to do a couple. I just want to do a few quick hitter ones. What's your favorite movie of your uncle's, Francis?
I mean, I was of like, I think because I started watching movies later into his career,
Yeah,
but I like The Outsiders was always like a movie,
love
like
that choice.
Fish, Outside, like that sort of like time in his filmmaking life was really exciting.
Okay.
Because it's also just like younger characters as the focal point. Like these are, even though it's like set in it's a period piece.
Yeah,
It's just so cool to just like, yeah, watch him work with all these, like this ensemble of young talent was really cool. And
100%.
who went on to be like such mega superstars. But
Yeah,
yeah, that would be like a big one to spotlight for me.
yeah, it's great. All right, and then favorite zombie song.
There's a zombie song I highly recommend everyone listen to called Whenever You're Ready.
Yeah,
It was actually like sort of almost became, I don't say like a demo, but it like never got released. It put in front and center. It's like, check this out as like a single.
yeah,
But it feels, I'm a big like girl group fan of like the 60s.
yeah,
And like I could hear the Shirelles singing Whenever You're Ready. It feels almost like it was written by a Brill Building like songwriting duo for
yeah.
like a 60s girl group. It's just like it has that timeless pop feel. I love that song. So Whenever You're Ready, I recommend for people.
Okay, I'll have to put it on. All right, Robert
Awesome.
Schwartzman, thank you so much for talking with me today. Hung Up on a Dream is in select theaters, and I think it's in theaters today, and then we'll definitely be expanding more this weekend, Friday, May 16th. We hope so many people will go see it, and we will keep spreading the great word of the zombies. It's such good music. So thanks for
Yeah, and just for your audience to know, like if you go to hungup.official.film, it's just a dedicated site for all the theatrical info. So if people want to check it out.
awesome. Thanks. All right,
Awesome.
Robert Schwartzman, thank you so much, man. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
All
Take
right.
care.
Yep.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
it.